Good evening, campers, dreamers, and babysitters, and welcome to our raw reaction review for Ash. Yes, this science fiction, psychological, cosmic horror delight that is Ash is finally here for us, Luke. I remember we got a little email blurb about this right before they announced it. I think it was at Fantastic Fest or one of the festivals towards the fall when they announced this, Jenny Penn, and a couple others that they had picked up. And they were like, yeah, they're going to be our spring releases. And I just remember seeing Aaron Paul, this being a Flying Lotus film, and also just the fact that it was cosmic horror, and just thinking, I don't need to see a trailer. I don't need to see anything. I am sold.
Yeah, this was horribly misrepresented to me. I thought this was a Pokemon film at first. It turned out not to be the case.
Happens.
But, just as good. I do like me some cosmic horror. And, watching the trailer on this one, man, the style of this film it hits you in the face, just like a big sucker punch. And sometimes when you look at those trailers, they pack in, the best stuff in that minute and a half and try to really sell you on the film. But if you watch the trailer for this film and you're wondering if they're going to be able to sustain that kind of stylistic choice that you do see within that minute trailer, they absolutely do. This is just dripping with a bunch of different style throughout the film. It really kind of drives it. So, I was rather intrigued by this one, just being able to see that trailer, knowing this is that kind of cosmic horror. We're in outer space and just what kind of flavor it can bring. So I was rather excited about this one.
Yeah, and Flying Lotus is somebody I'm familiar with their music quite a bit, but I was really, honest to God, a pretty big novice to even his directorial stuff. Like, I knew that he was working on things. I knew he did like VHS, that was a big one. But I never saw his film from 2017, Kuso, which any of you who've checked out this week's bizarre horror movies list, that was something that many of you have recommended to me, so that'll certainly be something that I'm going to be watching soon, especially because Ash here was a very solid follow-up, or at least first time exposure for myself, probably follow-up for many of you, for Flying Lotus. I really liked Ash. I thought that although this movie doesn't win me over completely, I have a couple of criticisms. I think that this is got all of the correct pieces, from the design aspect, the sound, the aesthetic. Everything works visually, and from a performance standpoint, I think everybody here works, and it's exciting, it's fresh, and I'm looking for something really immersive and very captivating to happen at any turn in this film, just because it is so visually stunning.
Absolutely. Yeah. Visually stunning is probably the best phrase you can put on this film here, just because, like I said, from that trailer, this is able to sustain that kind of flavor that you do see in that minute trailer. And even when we open up in this film, it kind of gives you that what the fuck moment of what exactly is going on here. It's opening up the door for more questions than answers at that point, and wondering what is happening. I think it builds that intrigue at the very start of this film because you really don't know what's going on, and it really does sustain that kind of narrative up until probably about, this is an hour and a half. It probably sustains that till at least an hour into this before we get the full narrative of what exactly is going on here. And for me, I think it worked maybe a little bit more than it did for you, not to
Mm-hmm.
spoil anything. But for me, I think it did build up that intrigue for me enough that I was curious to see how this one was going to really play out.
And before I really get into my minor criticisms, because really I think that this is just a personal thing. I've already admitted to Luke that I'm probably going to need to watch this movie again to really uh, fall in line and hop on board with everything that happens. I just felt like, I guess I'll just get it out of the way now. I just felt like there was in general just a couple of pacing issues as far as like the story goes, and just kind of how we lay certain things out. I felt like there was a little bit of an inconsistency there that made this a little bit of like a stop and go kind of feeling for me, where it's like I'm really engaged and then they did something and I'm like, okay, we're not like really getting as many answers here as we were before, and it feels like we're kind of trying really hard to hide something that I don't necessarily think they needed to do as much, because once we actually figure things out and what's happening and we really see what's going down, I really feel like we should have played with that more. I feel like the real like kicker at the end of this is great, but I feel like it should have been more of a presence overall. I feel like there is a lot of this movie where we're just kind of waiting for our main character to discover more pieces, and they don't necessarily do the most interesting thing in between that, I guess. But what I will say is that where a lot of that gets carried for me in a lot of those quieter scenes is just in the absolute like cinematography, the way that they compose these shots, the visual style, and just like the sense that this movie gives, even just from the perspective of, you know, us the audience and the camera. It's all very creative. They are very much playing around with a lot of different techniques and a lot of really weird, and I think some of my favorite bits of cosmic horror are when they're not afraid to really make you feel like you're actually watching something on another planet. It doesn't feel like we're just watching something on a soundstage. This genuinely feels like it's like bringing you into the film.
Yeah, it really does feel immersive to from that creative standpoint. I think Flying Lotus certainly put a creative stamp on this film. And, you know, in when you look at these kind of space films, they can feel a little derivative. And if you strip that down and just tell that story that Ash is telling, it may feel a little derivative from video games, from actual films that you've seen in the past, some iconic films out there that, you know, when you're in that conversation is some heavy hitters out there. But you know, I think being able to put that creative stamp on here certainly amplifies this film and builds it up into a different league than it would be if we were just kind of telling this basic story with not these stunning visuals. And there's a lot of different visual styles that go along with this film. And this is a very textured film, I would say, with a
Oh yeah.
sound design, with this, with the score, with the playing of the visual styles, just the lighting in general. I think that's really what's going to grab you here, because as you look at the story, I'll say the jury was out probably 45 minutes into this film, because I was like, you know, it's very creative. It has a very particular flavor to it, but I didn't know if they were going to double down on what I wanted out of this film. And like you said, when it really does get going in what they do present, and I'm with you where it's like I wish we would have gotten that a little bit earlier, because it was what I was hoping for. Because once it really gets going, I think it's going to please a lot of science fiction fans out there. They do some things in this that I didn't think they were actually going to go that route with. And once you start seeing and they start showing you exactly what the narrative that they're presenting here is, I got fully engaged as to what they were going to be doing and what route they were going to go down here. Because by the time we get to the end of this film, I'll say I had a lot of fun from that visual aspect of it, but I had a lot of fun with the story as well. And I understand uh, one of the issues you had with it, you know, with the pacing and kind of how they lay the groundwork for the story before they unveil everything out there. I totally get it, just because it is a different feel to it. I don't know necessarily if I can pinpoint, as we're sitting here, a film that has approached it like a science fiction film, this route like that. So it's kind of maybe some uncharted waters. For me, it didn't really stick out too much like a sore thumb, but I understand your gripe with it. So, but by the time we get to that actual science fiction portion, it was absolutely so much fun. And they go
Mhm.
into that gore aspect of it. They really, really double down on some visuals in here that I absolutely loved.
Absolutely. I mean, the third act of this is seriously, it's why you're showing up to the movie, in my opinion. If you're a cosmic horror fan, if you love body horror, if you love all that, that is going to absolutely satisfy you. It's awesome. And again, yeah, I agree. I just think like I just wish we would have gotten it a little sooner. But putting that aside, looking at the film just by all its merits and everything that I do like about it, I can still, I think, safely say that this is going to be about a mid-tier recommend for me. Didn't blow me away. It does not get into must-see territory, but this is something that it's like I could see this really hitting for me on subsequent watches. And that's another great thing, is I do want to watch this again. The other thing that's my biggest takeaway from this, and this one might be a little blasphemous, we'll see how people feel about it. I don't know. I would love to see Flying Lotus take on an Alien movie, but also from the franchise. But I would like to see him do something that's almost like a continuation of like Prometheus. And I can't get any deeper into that, otherwise we'd have to start talking about stuff in this movie. But I thought I can see he's got some love for that film, and I'm right there with you, friend. It's great.
Yeah, there's certainly some scenes that are reminiscent, I will say, that really did take me back as well. I put it in my notes, but you
There's
know,
some
from
designs, some things that are very much influenced for sure.
certainly, and I wasn't 100% positive on this film. I'll say they used some CGI in here that doesn't necessarily hit, and I think that's because of the film's budget. But
Yeah,
it's one of those nature of the beast. It's not a complete strike because you needed it in the film to really get
yeah.
from one space to the next. So you had to have it in there, and I know you're working with the tools that you have. So for me, it wasn't a huge strike. It was just something kind of like, you know, it's a little jarring at times, but with the style around the film and how they're able to conceal it a little bit, I think for me, it worked better than I thought it could. One of the other things is there's another scene in here where I don't want to go into spoilers or anything, but it ran a little bit long where there's some text on a screen with a character speaking, and I was like, I get the point. It seemed like we were kind of a little bit redundant at times. I was like, we can kind of get moving on this. I understand what exactly is going on. We don't necessarily have to sit with that right now. So it was just a small little issues like that that got me. But overall, with the style, the texture of this film, the performances, there's nothing I think performance wise that stands out to say, oh my God, this is a great performance. But it's such a cohesive cast with some strong performers in here that it really does drive the story. So for me, I'm right there with you, a mid-tier recommend. This is a solid recommend for me. There are a couple issues, but overall, I think this is a rather intriguing chapter into that kind of science fiction alien style film. It really does have that creative stamp. I'm excited to see what Flying Lotus is going to do next because I watched this with my headphones in, just sitting down, and I
Oh
was
yeah.
fully immersed with this one. I thought it was a lot of fun. Maybe not an alien film next time, but I want to see what exactly we're going to be looking at, what that creative stamp is going to bring to us next, because I had a lot of fun with this one.
Yeah, and definitely let us know down below, guys, when you are going to be checking out Ash. This one is coming to select theaters on the 21st, so this Friday, and it will be following up on Shudder probably within the next month or so. So keep an eye out for that. It's certainly something I definitely think you should go out and see it if you're a huge cosmic horror fan, if you're a fan of science fiction in general. I think it's really cool and unique. And again, you can tell that maybe they could have taken a few more passes at the script to really tighten things up and bring some things forward. But at the end of the day, as far as like just solid science fiction horror stuff, this is definitely something that I'm really happy I could sit down and watch. This is probably in the same area, the same shade for me as like a movie like Life from like 2017, where it's like solid thing, pretty, not breaking too many, barriers as far as like where it's mind-blowing, but it's fun, it's good sci-fi, it's good horror. I liked it. So definitely check out Ash. Let us know down below what you thought. And yeah, we got a lot of great stuff up on the channel right now, guys. We got our lists going out there. We got the 5 Savage Revenge films that'll leave you speechless with our buddy Luke over here, and then I just had one come out talking about bizarrely disturbing horror films that'll make you uncomfortable. So yeah, definitely check those out, show them some love, and yeah, that's gonna wrap it up here for us. So until next time, I'm Dylan Newell,
And I'm Luke Janesco.
and remember, stay scared.
Do the horror shit, gonna do it live. Cause Splattercast kick it every day they live. Splattercast, gonna smash your ass. 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 Splattercast, gonna smash your ass.